Khorne favors the bloodthirsty. A prize for the one who collects him the most skulls.
What's up, guys? Running it back with another replay, and it's gonna be a Khorne showcase versus the Lizardmen today. Gonna be fighting a very scary blob, essentially. So only 6 units in the starting army. Mine's pretty small as well. There are reasons for that, as you might imagine, but for the forces of the Lizards, we've got Lord Mazdamundi backing up the Shredder of Lustria ROR, a freaking terrifying unit. Does have Dread Aversion, which lowers leadership in an aura, which is pretty painful for Khorne since you do rely on Frenzy for a lot of your units. But we'll see if I can deal with that. Skink cohorts and 2 Saurus Spears is going to be all that there is for infantry. I've got some Marauder Horsemen coming out as maybe I think my first summon. Maybe they were already out in the field. No, they were my first summon because the second one's coming out here, and the horned ones are coming out onto the field for the Lizardmen as their first summon. Hounds of the Blood Hunt, they have captured the #1 objective, doing a little bit of damage to the skink cohorts, but getting trapped up a little bit. One of these poor doggos getting run down by the angered Triceratops here, although it is technically, you know, called a Stegodon. But whatever, you know, fantasy moment. Throwing in with the Marauder Horsemen on the Saurus Spears. These guys getting a little close for comfort, but they want to throw this last volley with perfect accuracy. And going to be pulling out of combat here, trying to mitigate most of the damage. Losing a couple of models, and that's about it. Exalted Bloodletters are going to file in through the Marauder Horsemen and collapse onto the Saurus Spear unit, doing nasty work, while the BloodBrute Behemoth coming in. He's also pretty decent against infantry, not the best unit to throw in against infantry units, but he can do some good work. Just don't want him fighting spears, so I am going to pull back, and a nice cast of Comet of Cassandora coming in here, overcasting it, absolutely annihilating my poor Exalted Bloodletters here. Not before they are able to mostly kill this Saurus Spear unit, which is nice. Getting rid of them is going to be very favorable for me, and that is a very expensive spell to overcast. I believe it's 18 with the full value there. So, honestly, not the worst trade in the world for me. Trading damage for magic is honestly not the worst thing in the world at times. Horned ones very trapped up back here. Valkia is fighting in this pit, and the Dreadsaurian trying to deal with her, but popping Demon Shield just in time before it's able to get a smack in on her. And Halberds, very rare to see Halberds in Khorne builds in the past. A little bit better now, and I've been experimenting with bringing one in a variety of matchups, and I do believe they're very good against Lizardmen, obviously. Pretty vulnerable to Razordons, but you don't see those too terribly often, and they have excellent armor to mitigate skink fire, and they actually beat Saurus in straight-up fights. You can see there, they're doing some pretty good damage to this unit. A Sloughtneer and help from the BloodBrute Behemoth is going to help finish that unit up. And using some Minotaurs, chasing down the horned ones here, getting a little scary with the Shredder of Lustria so close in there. Collapsing on these skink cohorts that are overextending, and Marauder Horsemen showing their chops in melee combat. Doing a lot of damage, man. These guys are really helping pay for themselves. Hounds of the Blood Hunt are certainly going to help chase these guys down, while the Horsemen are going to rally here in a moment to start throwing at the Shredder, where I really need some help right now. Pretty good cast of Ruination of Cities, but it does hit the skink skirmishers really badly. I didn't realize how much damage it did to them. Exalted Bloodletters not paying for themselves. Not good for me, but they, like I said, they sucked a lot of magic resources up and helped kill a spear unit, leaving my opponent pretty thin on the ground in terms of really high-quality infantry. Sauruses losing their last few models to the Chaos Warrior Halberds, and BloodBrute Behemoth getting a little big for his britches, fighting both of these monsters as well as horned ones. Gonna be trying to retreat out of here with this guy. and get him on top of the halberds, who I am moving into position to brace, although I do just end up charging them in. And they're going to start poking at the horned ones and the big monsters here. Going to help BloodBrute Behemoth immensely, who is in danger right now. He's good against both of these targets in succession, but certainly not when they're both standing on top of one another with Shield of the Old Ones and damage resistances and just smacking him up in general together. Another Comet of Cassandora going to come out here trying to hit the Bloodletters, but I am microing away, trying to get most of my halberds out of the way. A few of them, unfortunately, do get clipped, and they do suffer a terror rout here, I believe. Yeah, terrified, losing a little bit of leadership and not wanting to stay there. My opponent taking massive damage on the Shredder of Lustria from these throwing axes, who have gotten some pretty great value so far. But one unit out of ammo, this one almost out, and Valkia trying to pick up some of the slack with the Minotaurs and the BloodBrute Gorgon going after this big scary monster. The Hounds of the Blood Hunt have stopped up a huge horde of skink cohorts and spears and other lizard units, but they have broken through now at the last moment and are going to finally be able to support their isolated monsters, which is a very unfortunate position for me to be in. I did have some pretty good isolations and almost had the Shredder of Lustria, but Cold-Blooded went down, keeping his leadership buffed up until he got a heal, and is now just fighting happily. And this thing just has obscene amounts of health anyways. I mean, 2,000, well, it looks like he's on death's bed, and in a lot of ways pretty much is, but 11,000 healing and still has 3,000 health, so pretty nasty here. I do unsummon the Horsemen. I was debating whether to keep them on the field to chase down skirmisher units and spears and the like, but I figured I was actually going to need the ammo more than anything to throw against these monsters. I was going to resummon them. I do have the triple cap as well, so I can give ground here if I want to, and play the long game for the tickets, but I am committing pretty heavily into this fight, which is definitely a mistake. I should have pulled back earlier. The Minotaurs and Bloodletters and BloodBrute Gorgon actually routing as well. Valkia on the verge of getting trapped here, which is a little scary, so going to be pulling her out of combat here. She does thankfully have some Bloodletters who are giving her a little pathway to retreat out of. And another Comet of Cassandora comes in to hit these Bloodletters, doing a decent chunk of damage on them and starting the crumbling. These guys are also suffering from the Dread Aversion effect, lowering their leadership pretty badly. And there's just so many lizards here, so the Bloodletters are actually getting dumpstered pretty hard. I had pulled back a lot of value, but now I'm bleeding it right back to my opponent. Halberds coming in here, going to help poke down on Mazda Mundi and the Shredder of Lustria, who is getting yet another apotheosis in the BloodBrute Gorgon, taking nasty damage and routing yet again. One more is going to break him fully, and he is on the verge of death here, but just able to squeak away, fortunately for me. The Shredder of Lustria trying to catch this guy, but he is a little bit too fast for them and is able to just barely squeak away. He has some healing room, obviously. Playing carefully with him if he does rally is going to be my ticket back into this game. And Mazda overextending, and the Horsemen coming back out at the perfect time with him way out of position, throwing in the axes here, doing some nasty work against him. Let's just watch what one volley can do. Taking about 300 health off of him. A few more axes going in there, taking about another 100. While another unit of throwing axes come out with the Exalted Bloodletters, who are ready to renegotiate their contract with the Blood God. They want their Hellblade up, which they immediately get, being close to the kill count from their first go-around, and they are going to wreck the Saurus Spears here, which is very important. I am playing a very tense game out here on the flank with these Chaos Knights. They've been out on the field for a little bit. They flattened some tattered skinks and spears, and are trying to figure out where exactly they're going to be going on the battlefield. Dreadsaurian here, Dreadsaurian, Lamau, chasing them, trying to get on them. They are poisoned. I'm trying to pull them away, and they seem to be going way slower than seems normal, but Shredder of Lustria is going to get on top of them and do some pretty bad damage to them, but I am winning in the middle fight yet again. Some spears overextending into the Fleshhounds here. The ROR Fleshhounds are back out on the field, ready to also make their name heard, and a terror rout going down from the BloodBrute Behemoth, who's at 4 leadership, holding and getting heals in combat from Flesh from Strength. Chasing down routing units is actually great for him. And these Skink Skirmishers get smacked up by the Hounds of the Blood Hunt before they're able to get any javelins, or I guess blow darts, on top of the BloodBrute Behemoth, who is up to 1,100 health after being down to about 600 there. Getting a little bit of room, and Mazda Mundi being completely isolated from all of these units that were taking the number 1. Taking some nasty damage from the throwing axes, who are just hounding him relentlessly now. 1,400 and 1,300. He had about 6,000 health just a minute ago, and is immediately regretting the decisions that he's been making for the last couple minutes. Just taking nasty damage, getting surrounded by Hounds of the Blood Hunt now, trying to fight them off, but not having a great time of it. They have pretty good mass, so they are trapping him up and keeping him locked in place pretty well. He is pushing around with his animations a bit, but Valkia and the Hounds are able to nibble him down and break him. If I can just stay on top of him and keep chasing him, there is not going to be a way back in this game for the Lizards. The number 3 objective is being tussled over by Saurus warriors and hordes and hordes of Fleshhounds. Another unit coming out here. This is the second one. BloodBrute Behemoth gonna help up top here, killing the Cold One Riders, doing a pretty good job against them, helping against Skink cohorts, as well as some Saurus warriors who are getting beat up pretty badly. And with the Fleshhounds here, coming in just in time before the Marauders and then the Halberds broke, and locking down most of these units in combat, holding this point just long enough for me to be able to start to take this, and I do believe I'm going to be able to get the win here, although I do think that the game is in my pocket. I've pulled a pretty substantial lead. Mazda is routing. The Shredder of Lustria can be dealt with in time. The BloodBrute Behemoth has a decent amount of healing cap space, and this fight is going in my favor as well. But GG's to eBankers. He played an amazing game. It was certainly pretty terrifying from wire to wire for me, and there were some pretty big momentum shifts throughout that battle. So, well played to him. Fat value on the Marauder throwing axes. They got beat up a little bit at the end there, fighting some Saurus spears, but had most of their models and quite a bit of ammo left, so would have been able to do some kiting. Chaos Knights, they got beat up pretty bad by the Shredder of Lustria. Didn't lose a ton of models, though, and, you know, didn't really have too many places to go at the end of the game there, but would have been able to help control and intercept reinforcements and maybe chase down some routing units at the end there. Good value on BloodBrute Behemoth. Hounds of the Blood Hunt did much better the second go-around, but did a good job in their first life of just blocking up a huge wave of reinforcements, which was great for me. Exalted Bloodletters were doing some work there at the end. 228 kills is pretty nice on them. Not paying for themselves either time, but just being annoying and demanding answers, because these guys body pretty much the entire infantry roster for the Lizardmen. The only thing that they don't beat is the Star Chamber Guardians, which is really saying something for how good these guys are. Being 1,200 gold and beating the regular Temple Guard variants really decisively and absolutely butchering Saurus spears in droves. Halberds did alright. They didn't do the most damage in the world, barely paying for themselves, but they got the dreaded 69 kills. Valkia doesn't say she got a ton of value, but she was pretty healthy. It's better to get her into the late game, where she can pick much stronger engagements, especially against a build like this. You don't want to just dive her in and watch her get killed. It's better to just fly overhead, cast Sleipnir, and engage when Demon Shield is active. You can get some swings in and then just run away and preserve her health. So that's all I have to say about this one, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you around. Peace.